Good evening, Sonia and folks. I just wanted to let you know the meeting is being recorded.
Thank you, David. So we're only missing, I think, Renee and Chris. I don't see them on the call yet, but it's 5:30. So I'm gonna actually call the meeting to order, and I think we have a lot to go through, so people will just join us, and we have a quorum, so we can start. And I'm sure Chris and Renee will be here as soon as they can be. So I'll call the meeting to order, and I would look for a motion to approve the agenda, and we can discuss additions or deletions. Alice, are you giving us a? Alice is making a motion, or?
I'll second.
Thank you. Hi, Chris.
So moved.
Thank you, Alice. All right. So, are there any additions or deletions on the agenda?
I didn't catch who seconded that motion. I'm sorry.
It was Gina.
Who was it?
Gina.
Thank you.
Hi, Sonia. This is Guy. I can do this during roundtable. Just do a quick report on the Career Center Governance meeting that happened May 11th, or you can ask 7-8. Your pleasure.
Why don't we do 7.8 just so we don't forget about it? So it's the CVCC Governance Board or Governance Committee?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. I have a couple of additions. We're going to add 6.3, the FY22 budget. And we are, actually, I have one addition, and we're also going to delete under 11.3. We do not need to discuss the total compensation benefit, so we're going to take that off executive session. Are there any other additions or deletions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the agenda, please signify with a thumbs up, and I'm going to run through the list. Sarah, Guy, Tim, Gina. Gina, are you good with the? Yes. Alice. Okay. Abby. Great. Yes. Thank you. Chris, Renee. Excellent. All right. So the agenda is approved. Now we'll move on to additions, or I'm sorry, comments for items not on the agenda. So at this point, we would welcome public comment, and then we'll have student voice. And these are for items that are not on the agenda. Is there anybody who would like to speak at this time, or maybe has a question about something that may be on the agenda and is not sure if they don't have the agenda in front of them? It looks like Rachel, would like to go ahead.
Thank you, Sonia. I have a comment about something that's an executive session.
So you want to be added to executive session?
No, I just wanted to make a comment. It's on the agenda. However, I see it's an executive session. So is it all right if I make the comment in public comment?
I don't know if you can make a public comment about something we're going to discuss in executive session. If it's regarding personnel, if it's regarding someone in particular?
It's not.
Okay. It's just a general comment?
A general one. Yep.
Okay. Then I think it's okay for you to make a general comment during public comment.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Good evening. I'm Rachel Van Vliet from the Barrie Educators Association. I'm here tonight to represent the voice and interests of our members and want to speak to the importance of including educators in the superintendent hiring process. We believe our students will be best served if a committee of stakeholders is involved in the decision-making process. Whether it is an interim, 1 year, or long-term position, the association believes our voice, along with others, is essential. We've reached out to the administration as well as human resources with our interest in being included in the search and selection process. However, no hiring process or committee has been initiated per our understanding. As a result, we want to make sure the following is clear to the board. A major duty of the superintendent is to supervise all administrative, certified, and non-certified staff. The next superintendent will also need to provide strong, clear support for our students, especially in this time of need. The selection of a superintendent, interim or otherwise, should not be made by an isolated group acting without full understanding of the many parts of this unified union. Best practice, according to the Vermont School Board Association, includes a search committee, a clear selection process, and a community needs assessment. The association, along with representatives of students, families, community members, and the administrators of the district, must be included in the process if it is to be successful in finding the right candidate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Is there anybody else who would like to make a public comment for an item that's not on the agenda? Hey, one other thing. Hey, Tim, can you mute yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to make a public comment for items not on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, are there any students that would like to speak at this time? Okay, then we will move on. The next item is, there's only one item and under the consent agenda, and that's the meeting minutes from April 29th. So I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda, which actually is just the meeting minutes from April 29th.
So moved.
I'll second, Gina.
It looks like Andrea has her hand up though.
Thank you, I missed that. Andrea, go ahead.
I just want to confirm that the phone number listed is maybe Diane Solomon. Phone
Ending
number
in
ending 1-2.
Hi, this is Diane
Thank you.
Solomon.
Thanks.
Thank you, Diane. Thanks, Andrea. Is there any discussion or questions about the minutes? I actually had one piece under 7.4 policy committee. I think that part of the facilities report, facilities and transportation report, got moved down under policy because it says Mr. Isabel reported that the last meeting focused on projects to date and a review of summer projects, which may hinge on the outcome of the upcoming budget vote. But I think that's actually facilities and transportation, not policy. So I think that just has to be shifted up to 7.3. Is there anything else? Okay, hearing nothing else, all those in favor of approving the minutes and the consent agenda, which is the meeting minutes, please signify with a thumbs up, and I will go through the list. Sarah, now you guys have moved around a little. Sarah, Guy, Tim, Gina, Alice, awesome, sorry, Abby, Chris, Renee. Okay, so the minutes are approved, the consent agenda is approved, and we will move on to current business. 5.1 personnel memorandum, and we have under 5.11 new hires, and I will let David, would you like to present for us on this?
I would be glad to. And I hear or see that Carol is on the line, so if I forget a new hire, please let me know. Some of these are in the original board packet and some of them are in the addendum. But I'll go through our list. We have Marcus Holmes being hired as the PE teacher for Spalding High School. He's replacing David Ball. We have Carrie Cook, who is a special needs coordinator at the Career Center. She's replacing Kathy Fuller. We have Nathan Phelps being hired as a 5th grade teacher at Barrytown. He is replacing Neil Kelly. He has a long resume. We have Adam Rosen, who will be a special educator at Spalding High School. He's replacing Beth Nishbal. We have Elisha Thurston, who will be an early childhood educator. She is replacing Natessa Cornier. And Elisha served as a kindergarten teacher this year. We have Stephanie Dungeon, who will be a science teacher at Barrytown School, replacing Emily Merrill. And then I have some resignations. We have a resignation.
Sorry,
Oh,
David,
yes.
can I interrupt you?
Yeah. Mhm.
Is there also, did I miss this? Irene Mavadones? If someone can correct my pronunciation.
Yeah, let me double check.
Sonia, this is Chris Hennessy. It's Irene Mavadonis. She is she's been our long-term sub this year for art, and with Adrian Feaser's resignation at the middle school, she has been hired to replace her on a full-time basis.
Okay, Irene Mavadonis. She's
Yeah,
also included in the packet. Do you have that as well, David?
It's
I
behind
should, but,
Nathan Phelps. The one you thought was a long resume, it's behind Nathan Phelps.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, so I would look for a motion to accept the candidates as presented.
So moved, Guy.
Thank you. And a second?
Second, Sarah. Second.
Thanks, Sarah. Is there any discussion, comment, questions? Alice, do you have a question?
I'll get it. Josh Howard has a question.
Oh, thank you. Josh, do you have a question?
Yeah, last time I talked to you guys, I was talking about being creative as far as discussing whether to replace every single position comes forward with a rubber stamp or discuss the actual need of each candidate. I mean, especially with the budget failing again, this could be a cost saving without having to get rid of anybody.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Is there anybody else who'd like to make a comment? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the candidates as presented, please signify with your thumbs. Oh, Guy, go ahead. Wait, you're on mute.
Just a response to that, you know, while I agree with that, and I believe that people have looked at that option, as I look at the number of vacancies we have, this is far from filling what I believe the staff believe the needs are. So I think people are hearing you. I think people are being mindful as they hire folks, and I'm very proud that we're able to find people at a time when a lot of people aren't able to find people to work. So I'll just shut up.
Thanks, Guy. I appreciate that. I think we can have a longer discussion when we talk about the FY22 budget about how we're going to move forward. But these people, we're having this discussion because they've already been interviewed and we've already offered positions to them, and they're for positions that are currently filled. They're not, and there's not a single one that is a new position and to say that we're going to micromanage how the administrators fill their staff is really not our job. So is there anybody else who has a comment or a question? Carol?
Are we handling Melissa Lindteam separately, or is she not on the list?
I actually don't have her included, and I realized that after we went through everybody, but I think we should keep it separate.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go back to, are there any other questions or comments for the candidates as they were presented? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify with a thumbs up. Sarah, Guy, Tim, Gina, Alice, Abby, Chris, Renee. I lost you, Renee. Yep. Okay, so those people are all approved. And then we don't have the, I forgot the name, the assistant special ed director included in our packet. I'm realizing.
Yes,
So that,
and let me ask, there was some interest expressed by a board member that perhaps we move on this at the next meeting, or that it be tabled. Maybe it's a larger discussion.
okay,
That's,
so maybe
no reflection on the candidate, but it's on the position.
So maybe should we have that discussion as part of our, should we have it now as part of hiring, or should we have it later as part of the budget discussion?
I suggest as part of the budget, but Alice, you were going to speak.
Yeah, I think part of the budget is the better place to have that discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, it's also, it's not included in the packet.
No, it's not. So we will not be voting on the assistant special ed director, but we'll have a conversation about it when we talk about the FY22 budget. Okay. So I believe that's it from new hires. And then 5.1.2 is resign, retire.
Right. And also, Sonia, I see that Carol has her hand up, so I'm wondering if I missed something or she had something else to add. No.
Nope, she's saying no. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just list off, there are resignation letters that are in your packet. There's one from Andrea Bixler, Brian Burgess, Rebecca Mortensen, and Michelle Lynch, Allison Grogan, Jennifer Bisson, Richard Turvey, Michaela LeBlanc, Eliza Benoit, Allison Payette, and Elizabeth Ather.
Chris, go ahead.
In the packet, I see the response from David about Michelle Lynch's resignation letter, but I don't see the letter in there itself.
I think that was included as the second addendum, part of the second addendum that maybe came out today. I also had that same question, but I think that was included. I think it got cut off, Tina said, and it was included in that second packet.
Okay, that one I haven't been able
Actually, it wasn't in the addendum. Tina was just going to send you a separate email because I emailed her about it today. I said, you're missing the resignation. And she'd already sent out the second addendum. So she said she would email it to all the board members.
Yes, it actually came in a separate email with the corrected table that had, because the table that we're going to talk about for the budget had an incorrect formula. So it was in an email that was included with that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And we don't have to take any action on the resigns or retires. So this is just an acknowledgement of these teachers and staff that have served the district, and we thank them for their time and their service. Guy?
Yeah, just I think as a general rule, I just like to thank people for serving our district. Good, bad, or indifferent. Especially this year when it's been so difficult and so many people have had difficulties. So I really appreciate people stepping up and wish people well and thank them for being part of our district.
Thanks, Kai. Okay, is there anybody else? Okay, hearing nothing else, we will move on to 5.2 summer camp. David, or will you give us an update on that, or is someone else going to give us an update?
Nope, I can give an oral update on that. It's taken a little longer than we expected, but plans for the summer camp are progressing quite well. Malaiko Neto is our general education coordinator for summer school, and we have our partnership for grades K up to age 12 with the Greater Burlington YMCA. Hiring is almost complete for the camp. Registrations for elementary age and up to age 12 students in need is progressing. There are approximately 180 students registered now, and we're expecting approximately 200 students participating in this summer camp program. Just a reminder, I've talked about it before, but this camp experiences integrates a 5-day-a-week YMCA camp experience that goes from 8 in the morning till 5 at night with academic support. So that's integrated into this. It will run through the month of July and into the first week of August. So we expect, hopefully by the end of next week, our registration of students who've been identified by their teachers of being in need will have been completed. And then we can open up the remaining spaces to other Barry students ages K through age 12. So that's progressing nicely, and very excited about it.
How many students did you say we were going to be able to serve?
Hopefully, and this is once the staffing is complete, and it's nearly complete, 200 students. Now, okay. It might vary because some students might come for only part of a day and another student coming at another day. So the total number of students who have some type of experience might be higher. And right now for students in need, we have 180 approximately signed up now.
Okay. It looks like there's a few people that have their hand raised. Sarah, did you have a question?
You asked my question.
Okay, sorry. And Guy, do you have a question?
So yeah, David, is this part of the attack to try to catch people up that may have fallen behind? And if it is, do the numbers roughly represent perhaps a report we're going to get a little bit later tonight in terms of kids that probably haven't been totally engaged during the process? Or am I just totally off base?
Well, they're related, Guy, but it's not a one-to-one correlation. I'm very proud and excited that we're able to offer this rich opportunity to as many students as we can. I think it'll be quite a benefit to students. And it's along the lines of what the state is promoting, that we have increased summer opportunities for students. I had the opportunity to talk to Governor Scott and Senator Sanders about this when they met with superintendents. The actual need in our school system is much higher. If we could have a summer program for 400 students, we could fill it. But the reality, even though we're doing pretty well staffing this, staffing summer programs has been difficult all across the state. In fact, a lot of employment has. So I'm very pleased about what we have. But no, if you look at the overall need, it would be much higher. When it looks at engagement, though, Guy, you're right. We're trying to catch students who haven't been engaged during the school year, they may have missed school, not made progress, and also it's a great benefit to keep up the momentum of being involved in a program, coming to school, being with your peers, as opposed to in the summer, some students who wouldn't have that opportunity would be home alone or something like that. So to keep them in the mode of being engaged and then being more ready when school starts in the fall.
Okay, thanks, David. Chris, you have your hand up?
Yeah, thanks. I see on the district website, David, that it says that other opportunities are being explored for older kids through high school. And I wonder if you could speak a bit about what that might involve and when that information will be available for families.
Sure, absolutely. I know that Chris and Erica at the middle school level are finalizing plans for a technology-based program, and that will be announced very shortly. And I know that Brenda Waterhouse is and the high school crew are working on proficiency recovery programs for high school students. But it's more than just that. It's not just like catching up on the English class that you didn't hand in your assignments. It's more than that. It's about staying engaged, meeting proficiency, helping yourself be organized and learn skills that you need to be a successful student. So those details will be announced later. We'll put them on the website in more detail, but those are being worked on as well.
And thank you. I'd like to also just put a plug in that I think there's more that these kids need than just technology and proficiencies. I think they need to be with each other. They need to be outside. They need to do art. They need to work on also things that are impacting their mental health. And those kids have been out of school the longest comparatively for the whole district. So just a plug that those kids could use some fun together also. And as vaccinations are available and more kids are able to be outside and mask mandates are being let up, I really would encourage people to think about those types of opportunities for our kids in that age group as well. Thanks.
Thank
Chris?
you.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Just a quick response. You were right on. This program that we're looking at for our older middle level kiddos is called Future Genius. There is a video game design component and certainly a fun with technology component to it, but it's also run as a full day program with lots of summer camp, physical activity. It's really, from what I understand about it, having never worked in it or actually even experienced it, from how it's being explained to us, there are a lot of kind of traditional summer camp components to it. We're looking to have at least 2 full weeks of it going in the summer. Right now, it all just hinges upon finding the right staffing for it, but it really sounds like a great program. And but it isn't just to be clear, as we understand it, it's not just kind of sitting in front of the screen on a nice summer day. Not at all. In fact, they sell it as a very different type of immersive experience. So just wanted to point that out.
Great. Thanks a lot, Chris.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anybody else? All right, hearing nothing else, thanks for that update about the summer camp. Now we'll move on to 5.3, which is graduation dates, plans, and participation. And you do have a sheet, which now I can't seem to put my hands on, in your packet.
In the addendum, yes.
Yes, about the graduation plans. So, yep, I really can't find it.
It's page 16 of the first addendum.
Yeah, I think what happened was oh, yeah, sorry, I'm not looking at the addendum. That would help. Here we go. Okay, graduation. So Spalding is June 26th at 11. Actually, is Brenda on the call?
I am.
Brenda, would you like to just give us a quick, summary of what graduation is going to look like for Spalding?
Sure. We are going to go for the gusto. We are going to try to have it look as much like a normal graduation as we possibly can, including all family and community members that would like to join us on that event. We will have some minor changes. For example, our students are going to sit in the bleachers while our community members are on the field. We're going to those little changes like that, but we are very excited. Our seniors are incredibly excited to know that graduation is going to be held. We're working on some of the details because of the late timing of our end of year and graduation announcements. We don't have a lot of wiggle room, so we slated 11 o'clock as our normal time, 3 o'clock as our quote weather delay. So if it's raining in the morning and we can't possibly hold graduation, we'll postpone to the afternoon. And if for some reason it continues to be inclement weather, we are working on an alternative. But because Project Graduation has already secured their plans for that evening, we're kind of stuck in a tight window. So that's planning that I'm working with the senior class officers around.
Okay, great. And I will let the board know that Brenda and David did reach out. The board has participated in the past at, in the Spalding High School graduation. And since there's no restrictions on the number of people that will be able to attend, I hope that the full board will be able to participate in this really big celebration of our 2021 graduates. So please put it on your calendar and plan to be there. Next is CVCC. Is Penny here?
No, Penny's not.
Okay. Would you like to go over that, David? Do you have that in front of you?
I sure do. And for people on the call who don't have the document. For the Career Center, on June 8th at 6 o'clock, they'll have an awards night at the Barry Auditorium. And the students will follow all of the safety guidelines, masking, distancing, etc. We're surveying staff to determine their comfort level of having 2 members of the families present and measuring the square footage of the auditorium to determine whether or not we can invite family members to be present. They will not know the results until the 18th of May. The event will be live streamed for all board members, family members, and other guests. The event will also be recorded and linked to the website. Invitations are being printed next week and sent out to all sending school communities, students, families, board members, BUUSD staff, and RAB board members with a live streaming link.
Awesome. Thank you. And next is Barry Town. Erica, would you like to fill us in on that?
Sure. So I'm actually calling remotely. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Yes, so we are also planning to kind of hold our Step Up Night as similarly as we have in the past as possible. I've been working with the 8th grade class for them to help have a say in how that looks. There will be some tweaks, kind of like what Brenda talked about, kind of moving how we normally sit and things like that, just to be mindful of masking and social distancing as needed. But other than that, we're really excited and looking forward to being able to celebrate with our families and our community members.
Great, thanks. And Chris, for BCEMS, would you like to talk about your Step Up celebration?
Yeah, I would. This is a thing we're doing things a little bit differently. One of the positive things that came out of last year's craziness with the pandemic was that when we did our more personalized Step Up celebration for our 8th graders, the feedback we got from kiddos and their families and honestly our staff as well was that it was a big hit. And it allowed us to really personalize and celebrate the kiddos as individuals with some family members and a few friends present. So we're going to try to keep that as close as we can to how we did it last year with a ceremony out in front of Barry City Elementary Middle. But this time, the beauty of it is we should be able to expand it a bit in terms of how many people can come. So we're still working out the details of that so that the kids can celebrate with some more of their friends and classmates. But that individual personalized nature of it, we want to keep based on the feedback we got, and we're really excited about it. So Ujama. Team Ujama is going to be doing their night on Thursday, June 17, and Peak will follow up the following night, Friday night, June 18. And we've got some weather contingencies that we're working on, but we should be able to pull it off. We're very excited about it.
Excellent. Great. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions about graduation and step-up night plans? Guy, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question. Do you know if our local public access channel has been asked to video any of these celebrations? It's another opportunity for people that perhaps can attend. Gives them another window. The other thing I would say is, as a board member to attend these events, it's really a culmination of a year, and this year might be even more important to attend. It just shows the pride that parents, students, and the community has in the accomplishments. So I would encourage us to try to attend if we can.
Absolutely.
And Guy, I will say we are working on both streaming and taping for the high school graduation.
Great. Thanks, Brenda. Okay. Hearing nothing else, let's move on to 5.4, state required recovery plan. And David and Mary Ellen, I will let you guys go ahead.
Thanks again. The recovery plan was included in the packet. But I'd like to describe the work that we have so far and let you anticipate what's going to be coming at our next regular board meeting for me to present. So, for folks on the call who might not be familiar with the recovery plan, it's something that's required by the state of Vermont for every single school district post the COVID-19 pandemic. It's very similar to the continuous improvement plan. In fact, it replaces it for this year. It's to think about strategies that you can engage in that can help recover social emotional losses or academic losses for students. And it has us look at the areas of social emotional learning and student engagement, academic success, and then equity. And the recovery team has been meeting weekly at our, not this week's meeting, but last week's meeting, we took a look at the BUUSD design team, mission vision team, and their goal matrix, and took a look at all of the suggestions that came out of that goal matrix. And of course, that was an extensive project in and of itself, with input from many stakeholders, students, family members, board members, faculty, administration, everyone included. And we looked for how those goal statements in that plan aligned with the required categories in the state recovery plan. Then we also today took a look at, in addition to the goals and activities that the recovery team came up with based on data and student need, we also looked at a selection of proposals from BUUSD administration for spending our ESSER grant funds. And all of these, again, have to be tied to improving outcomes for students and linked to data. So today the team was tasked with taking a look at all three of these sets of goals, and there is a lot of alignment in these goals. And then the state is asking us in our recovery plan for each of those categories I mentioned to come up with really no more than 2 strategies that we're going to put in our recovery plan, call them investments, to improve outcomes for our students. So we're getting closer to the point where that's finalized. We're right on time. is due to the state at the end of this month, and we'll meet one more time, so we'll be on time for that deadline. The state will allow us to revise our plan if we come up with things down the road. They ask us to think about it more as if you're planning a trip, a car trip. You might plan to go see the Golden Gate Bridge, and then halfway across the country, you realize that you'd really rather go, you need to go see the Grand Canyon. So if you have a valid reason, you can change your plan. The board asks about student engagement, and there's a whole engagement section. When I present the final draft of the plan, you'll see strategies that we've identified to increase engagement. But the board on a couple of occasions has asked for some rough figures on the number of students that we need to re-engage. And that's what I included in 5.4. It's in the addendum, the student engagement report. And the schools are reporting out what they're finding now that we've returned to nearly full in-person learning. I'll summarize it, and then maybe people have questions for individual administrators. The high school is finding that there are, since we've returned, there are 18 students who are not engaged, who are not regularly attending, and we're reaching out to those. But overall, attendance has dramatically improved since we've returned to in-person learning. And also, notably, we have 10% fewer academic alerts in the fourth progress report. For the Career Center, their students have remained engaged in classes. Students are highly motivated because they've signed up for career education, and also because of the size of that program, they've been nearly in their regular mode throughout the pandemic. For Barry City, thinking about when students return full-time, when the younger students in K4 came back, there are 31 students who are missing 20 or more days of school. When grades 5 and 6 came back, there are 8 students missing 20 days or more. And when 7, 8 came back, there are 2 students with 10 and 11 days absent. And let's see, oh, in grade 7, I'm sorry. Grade 7, 2 students with 10 and 11 days out. Grade 8, 3 students with 10 and 11 days out. So they too have seen significant decreases since we've returned to full-time learning. And thinking about how it compares to a typical year. If you set aside our remote learning days, Barry City is saying that their truancy and disengagement rate is really similar to a typical school year. So that's something that's been an ongoing struggle for Barry City, and something that we're hoping to address in the recovery plan. And at Barry Town, the number of students who have 20 or more absences, pre-K through 8 is 12. So this is for the entirety of their year. On average, they've had a very small number of students who are not engaged. And is fairly typical to a normal year. So I'll stop and see if administrators have any comments or if the board has any questions.
So Hayden has his hand up. Go ahead, Hayden.
Well, just to comment and kind of what David was saying, we've had a lot more success since our students returned to school full time. We were seeing a lot of success in the hybrid model on the in-person days, but as everyone kind of maybe understands, students in difficult situations often struggle more, and we found that a lot in remote learning. Families not being able to afford internet, families not having access to computers. We did our absolute best to get Chromebooks to everyone last spring. This year, we worked hard on access. We even have worked with local hotels where some of our families and students are living to increase access, but that was a struggle. So that's why we kind of broke down our data a little bit to show that now that we're back in person, we are connecting all our learners back here at school, and we are seeing a lot of success. So we're really glad to be in person since January 15th on the K4 end. So.
Thanks. Sarah, you have a question?
I do, and this might have been mentioned. If so, I apologize. The numbers that are being reported here, are these a combination of children who are in the virtual program as well, or were signed up for virtual, or is it just the kids that were supposed to be in person anyways?
So these numbers reflect, let me say it simply, the virtual academy is not reported this evening.
But that does incorporate for the Spalding report our remote students.
Thank you, Brenda.
Okay. Thanks, Sarah. Are there any other questions? Guy, I see you have your hand up, but I'm guessing that's just a holdover.
Oh, it might be, but I think I can come up with one.
Okay.
So, and I appreciate the report, David. It's so what I'm hearing is that, since students have been able to come back, closer to full time, things have gotten better. My concern is how wide is the gap, prior to this, because we've had a fairly large catch up time. Is that gap any different than the gap in previous years? And I'm guessing that it probably is. And based on what our summer plans and stuff, are we trying to close that?
Right. Well, I could answer it in a couple of ways. When you look at student attendance, right, and truancy, I wish there was another word for that. It's just students who aren't able to engage in school. As the administrator said, it was definitely difficult during remote learning. But it is true to say, particularly at Berry City Middle and Elementary School and at Spalding High School, there's been an ongoing difficulty with students not attending, attendance issues, dropout issues, etc. And that's something that we're aware of and is going to be addressed in our recovery plan. So it was intensified by remote learning in the pandemic, but it existed beforehand. And also, when you look at academic achievement gaps, we've looked at our data before the pandemic, and we've looked at our winter data during the pandemic. And we're seeing similar gaps, right? That there are achievement gaps before the pandemic happened. And we'll have our spring data to report at the end of this year. And those will be addressed in our recovery plan as well.
Okay, guys, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. The only other comment I would make is, as a big tech supporter fan, I found that the tech center stats, at least in this report, fairly interesting. Just a comment.
Yeah. I noticed, I think I saw a hand go up for Megan Spalding. So Megan, do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little disappointed by the presentation here, because I have a lot of concerns. I've been paying really close attention. I've been watching the curriculum meeting. I have been looking at the STAR 360 assessments for math and for literacy. And the data that was collected in February and presented, it's not good. It's not good. Our kids are really academically struggling, and I think I really want to know, like, how are we catching those kids up? What are the steps for next year? Because if you have a child that's in 5th grade and they did not meet proficiency for math or literacy, and now they're going to move into 6th grade, what are the steps? Because it's not just like 1 or 2 kids, it's like, a huge amount of kids. And I think that there's not a lot of, I don't know. I just think as a parent, I would like to know how are we doing this? What is next year looking like when kids are coming back in? And I just would like some more transparency and just understanding how are we moving from this year to next year? Especially when we have, a large chunk of grant money. I want to know how we're going to meet those gaps and close them.
Yeah, I can speak to that, Megan, and I share the concern. Yeah, as I was saying, when you look at student achievement in Barry, in all three schools, there's been lagging achievement before the pandemic and during the pandemic. A lot of people are working very hard, but still that's a fact. And when you take a look at a recovery plan, and what I was asked to bring this evening was an update on where we were with the recovery plan, and also to speak to students who are not engaged in school any longer, not attending. So that's what I was attempting to report to the board tonight. But you're right. And when you look at what's reported in the curriculum committee, where we'll have a full report on what our achievement data is showing us. And we had that a few curriculum meetings before. So it'll give the full picture. We are being transparent. There's nothing to hide. The achievement levels were not what we wanted in prior years, going back a few years back, and they're not any better now. Something for people to keep in mind as you look at this is that the idea of catching whether it's a fifth grader, third grader, sophomore in high school, entirely catching them up to be totally proficient isn't something that's going to be done in 1 year. What we're looking at is increased growth. And there are plans in our curriculum committees, in our professional development plans to, I was going to say, aid and coach and help teachers with modes of instruction that can meet these needs. Things like math menu and things of that sort, so that you can meet those differentiated needs of students to help them have increased learning. And it's something that I can't encapsulate in a few sentences now, but it's essentially looking at the overall curriculum plan for the district, which also, not pointing fingers at any particular person, but there's been a lot of transition in our curriculum structures over the years. And again, I've always said this to the folks in Barry, people are working really hard, doing their very best that they can to help students. But the further coordination of this is going to help Barry students close those gaps. And that's the work that's ahead of you.
Megan, do you have another follow-up question?
I did. I just wanted to make it clear that I felt that our teachers were always excellent. I love our Barry City, Barry Town, Spalding, all of them, the Tech Center. I think they do an amazing job. I think that this was just a situation where kids were not in person. It was a very difficult time. So I just wanted to make it clear that I'm very much supportive of our teachers. And I just feel like if we need to be looking at positions where we're using grant money to hire more interventionists and different things, like I just which in future meetings that we had actual action steps where parents were able to say, okay, well, during this time there's going to be this program for my kid, or there's extra interventionists next year, or just a little bit more details. If you can't tonight, fine, but in the future meetings, because I just think that is something that parents are really worried, and I think it would be really nice to hear from the different schools and what it really will look like.
I appreciate that, and there will be more details as the plan is finalized. Like I said, we're moving along the timeline that the state's outlined for us, and we're making good progress. Action plans are due to the state on June 1st. Now, our professional development and work with teachers on the modes of instruction is continuous, but the recovery plan is due June 1st, and I'll present it to the board.
So as a follow-up to that, I had 12 questions about this recovery plan, and I sent them ahead of time to David and Mary Ellen and the full board, as well as Tina and Andrea. And I also am concerned about the level of detail, and I'm concerned about things that are not being included. I can run through all 12 questions, but I'm not sure we want to spend it would probably take an hour for you to answer all of my questions, is my guess. So what I wanted to know is, you said that this is a work in progress and the final plan is due to the Agency of Education by June 1st, but is it a work in progress in the sense that all of the questions that I'm asking are going to be addressed as you move along, and the questions that Megan had, are those going to be addressed?
I don't know that actually all of the questions will be addressed. So, again, as I've said, we're following the timeline. What was submitted at the end of April was our preliminary needs assessment, and the state accepted that and gave us feedback. And then we've worked on the action steps and investments in the recovery plan. But really, some of the questions that you're asking, Sonia, and that are being asked by the public here, really talk about the broad structure of curriculum delivery in your district. The state is very clear that in a recovery plan that they want one or two action steps in each of those categories. So if you look of all of social and emotional learning, they would like to see 2 goals that the school will work toward and a number of set activities that will invest funds in, so that we can have data to back it up and a measurement to see if it was successful. When you take a look at things in the design team, or even other suggestions by administrators, there's many, many more than 2, but that's what the state is asking us. See, these questions aren't all answered by a recovery plan. It's a limited tool that the state is asking us to work with and to present to them. So it's part of federal requirements and state requirements, but it has parameters around it. The questions that we're asking really would be very good questions for the curriculum committee, because it's talking about the whole curriculum delivery system in the school.
So I guess what I will do is when is the next time? I assume that this recovery plan will be presented at a curriculum meeting, and I can get my questions answered at that time.
Mm-hmm. That's
Okay.
a good.
Okay, so I will plan to have those. I'll plan to ask those questions in the curriculum meeting. But I do want to. I think that Megan has a really good point, and I think we, as part of our recovery plan, we need to find a way to communicate with parents about what the recovery plan, how the recovery plan is going to help them and their students. And that may not be included as part of the recovery plan, but I think it's something that we need to do to make sure that our community understands what we're doing to try to help catch their students back up. And whether it's very broad strokes or more detail, I think we need to be communicating at different levels so that the parents understand that we're working on helping to catch their students back up. It's starting now, but it's also going to be the summer camp. It's going to be what's going to happen in the fall, and so on. So I think how do we communicate that is going to be important. Did someone, Alice?
Yeah.
Hi.
The whole piece came together at the end there, because my thoughts on it were to have quite possibly someone from the recovery team visit at the curriculum committee so that we could ask any questions and get information from the folks who are actually on the ground working with the recovery plan. And then the second thing was the same piece of information at the communication committee meeting, because then we can map a plan, something that Josh Allen and I have been discussing at communication meetings, is having a communication calendar for the year as to what needs to be brought forward at any specific time. So if the recovery plan has information that needs to be brought forward, we would be able to get that out through not only the communications committee, but also through the communications office. So those two areas, curriculum and communications, to work with the recovery plan to get everything out that needs to be out.
Yeah, good point. Thanks, Alice. Diane, did you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you so much. Can people hear me?
Yes.
So I want to first say thank you for all of the information. I'm a little confused on the engagement piece and how that's measured and what the timeline is. So I don't know if I need necessarily that specifics now, but it's just not really clear. Are you measuring since students are back in school full time, their engagement? Because every school and different grade levels look different. So that was kind of one question to get clarification on.
Yeah, I can speak to that. And the data reported is since schools were returned to the increased in-person instruction. But again, that's just one data point, right? The number of students with a high number of absences. But there's many parts to student engagement. And some of those will be addressed in the recovery plan. Like I said, having one or two goals in the recovery plan following the state guidelines.
Sorry, I missed part of that because of where I'm located.
Yeah, sorry. Yep. So again, in summary, you know, the engagement report that was in the board packet is just one data point. It's just speaking to students who have a high number of absences. And as I said, that's been a nagging problem since before the pandemic. All of our administrators would speak to that. But that's showing the status right now of just one single data point. But when you look at student engagement, that's a multifaceted area. And the recovery team is doing the work right now to come up with approximately 2 goals, action steps that can be taken starting in the fall and sometimes in the summer to increase engagement. Again, it's a big question.
Right, thank you. And so for me, just to skim through the information, didn't really seem to hit upon the disengagement of our students. Everyone has spoken about how in-person learning is the best mode for most students. And personally, I see that with my 17-year-old who's jumping out of bed himself to get to school, which is like unheard of. But I'm so appreciative, and as is he. My apologies, I lost my train of thought on my walk. But I would be very curious to hear more about what the engagement will look like for the older students in the future in the recovery plan.
So it sounds like, Diane, I'm going to guess that that's going to be, those will be included as details that will be, we'll work with the communication team as the plan is finalized and will be shared with parents. I think it sounds like there are, you know, different parents at different levels who have questions, and we may not be able to answer them all tonight, but that we will be sharing them as the plan is continue to be developed and as we loop in the communications department to help us get that word out to parents and students about how we're going to help them. Is that a pretty good summary of what's going to happen as we move forward? David?
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
Andrea, do you have a question?
I just need to know, we had somebody join phone number ending 55, and we just need to learn their identity for the record.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, this is Joe Kill. My internet gave out, so I called in.
Okay, thank you. Yes, you were here before, so thank you.
No problem.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments regarding the state required recovery plan or student engagement? All right, hearing none, we will move on to old business. 6.1 is enrollment and home study update. And you have numbers from March in your packet. And I'm not sure if there's any questions about that, but the one question I have is how, which is not going to be reflected on this, but have we done any further investigating about what our numbers will look like for next year?
We have not taken steps to recruit or reach out, but I do have reports from at least Barry Town School that they have a strong number of students contacting the school about returning.
So are we going to do anything to find out if the students who are currently either in homeschool or virtually being attending school, or are we going to reach out to those families to find out what their plans are for next year so that we can get a sense of what our numbers will look like in the buildings?
We certainly can. We did a survey earlier in the year that had a small response, but we still have those lists and addresses so we can reach out to them.
Okay. It looks like there are a few administrators who have their hands raised, and I was not paying attention. So I'm just going to go in the order I see them. Brenda, would you like to chime in?
Sure. We are in the process right now of working on a plan to help engage our homeschool community. And we are in the process of trying to make that plan more solid and potentially using some of the ESSER funds to secure some alternatives that might help those families that don't normally choose the high school experience that Spalding has. We have had some success in the past with the outreach, and we want to expand upon that. And currently we have a student that used to be homeschooled. He proceeded to start taking classes, and then next year he will be fully scheduled with us. So it is a model we have already tried to pilot, and we hope to continue.
Awesome, thanks. Hayden?
Thank you. Yes, our registrar has actually contacted all of our students that were in the home study program this year and gotten the data on who's going to be returning next year, because we've been doing our placements for next year, so making up the class list and everything. So those students that will be returning have been contacted, and they've been placed into classrooms or will be placed in the next week or two coming back. And that's the same for students who maybe were in a private school. I don't know if we had any, but any student that basically was in our school before the pandemic, maybe and still is in our community, we've contacted them and we have them placed and ready to go for next year.
So that includes either homeschooled or virtual students?
So yeah, Virtual Academy, we're not offering a Virtual Academy next year, so they're coming, we assume that they're back in person, and that also includes all of our students that were homeschooled this year, so they may be enrolled in their own Virtual Academy or a different homeschooling plan, and same for students that may be enrolled in a private school. So they have been placed. The only people we didn't contact, we do have some families who live in Berry City and they've been homeschooling for like 5 or 6 years. We didn't necessarily contact them.
Okay, that makes sense. Do you have So your numbers for next year and your classroom sizes are already have been, you've already determined what you need because you already have an idea of what those numbers are.
Yes, and speaking just for my end of the school, we didn't have many students do a home study, so the numbers of students coming back aren't going to push us over the max number of our classrooms. We are good to go with our current projections and number of teachers and everything there.
Okay, great, thanks. And then I think Jen. Oh wait, you're on mute.
Sorry. As Hayden just shared, our registrar has also reached out to our families who had their students in the BVA, private, and homeschool. What we have recently found is that our enrollment for the 21-22 school year in kindergarten, first and second grade is a bit higher than we had anticipated when we originally built the budget. And I guess one of the bigger unknowns for our primary grades is if we will need to continue to social distance. So right now we have classrooms set at either the 3 or 4 feet, and just not knowing what the fall would bring. If we need to shift to 3 or 4 feet in the fall, then we just won't have the capacity to support all these students with the current staffing that we have. So that would be a conversation I think we need to have at some point fairly soon.
Okay. David, go ahead.
Yeah, on that note, Jen, I have a recent update from today's superintendent conversation with Secretary French. And while it's not announced, it was strongly hinted that the restrictions will be removed next year. The state of emergency is expected to be removed, and the restrictions are, we can anticipate that they would be removed. It's not announced yet, but it's just anticipated.
Okay. I only see one other hand raised. Chris, did you have your hand raised?
I did, but what I was going to say was addressed, so thank you.
Okay. The only other hand I still see up is Megan, but I think that's just a holdover. Megan, do you have a question? Nope, I guess not. Okay. So are there any other questions from the board about district enrollment or home study update? Okay, if not, we will move on to modes of instruction. And I wanted to at our last meeting, we had just a quick update during roundtable about how the return to in-person is going, especially for grade 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, because we had not had an official update. So I just wanted to get some feedback about how that's been rolling out.
Great, and I could do a quick update on that. To extent we've already discussed that this evening when we were talking about student engagement, that engagement is high, student progress is increasing in all of the schools. So there's good progress there. The administration reports that the return to in-person instruction has gone well. We're still under the same guidance from the state of Vermont, so we are not planning any changes to the mode of instruction, but the changes that we implemented in January and April have gone well. And I don't know if any of the administrators wanted to add any comments to that.
Chris?
Sure. Let me lower my hand, make sure. Do that. There we go. Yeah, I think we're now 2.5 weeks in of having the kiddos back. I think at the last board meeting we'd had just a couple days, and we were just kind of in that mode of just being so happy to have everybody back. And now we've actually been able to see everything in real time, and I can report from the Barre City side for grades 7, 8, you guys, it's really going smoothly. I mean, we've had to make adjustments around lunchtime and around, the spacing in the classrooms, but we were ready for it. We had time to prepare and get ready. We're really, in my view, on our Peak and Ujama teams, really we've just created a really welcoming atmosphere for the kids, bringing them back, understanding that they had been out of school for almost 14 months regularly when they did come back. So this is a big adjustment for a lot of them. And the kids are stepping up. So, I mean, it's still very early, but 2.5 weeks in, we're feeling very, very good about it. It's just, honestly, it's as we wrote in our report, it just feels like we have our whole community back. The school feels as it should. So it's great.
Great. Brenda?
Oh, ditto. Our students really had to make an adjustment. They have not been in the classes as whole cohorts. And so just having those first few days being back in the same spaces is like the first day of school for them. And so student discourse has started to really increase, and teachers are noticing that. Students are getting back into the routine of being in the building 5 days a week and getting back on track with their coursework. And, you know, we are seeing the students being much more on time, getting in, and just that whole routine piece. And so it's a matter of now focusing our energies on that recovery piece where students may have dug themselves a little bit of a hole academically, and we're working to help support them through these last few weeks to get them as close to caught up as we can, or caught up if possible, and whatever state they're in. Whether it be that we have them come back for summer school or we have special plans for them in the fall, we are working on curriculum to meet the needs of students for wherever they are at for the fall, knowing that not all students will be 100% caught up for sure. But we are definitely seeing an increase in engagement.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Is there anybody else? Any questions, comments?
Sonia, can I say one more thing that Brenda just brought up that rang a bell to me? Just in terms of the recovery plan, and I know Megan Spalding voiced very, very, very valid concerns about wanting specifics and details. And I think that something to bear in mind is that our faculty, as a rule, pre-pandemic, and as always, they've always done this, they're going to meet the kids where they're at. And we did that before the pandemic when we had kids with academic deficits, and we're going to be able to be ready to do it when we come back in September. So I think that I just hope people find that really encouraging. This isn't going to be new for us. We've had to meet kids where they're at for years, and we'll be ready to do it. So just want to put that out there.
Okay, thank you. All right, then we will move on to 6.3. We added 6.3, which is a discussion about the FY22 budget. And you have in your second addendum a couple of things that, well, you have in the first addendum, I believe, a list of vacancies. You have a revote exit survey, and then in the second addendum that was sent out today, there's the BUUSD staff and also student enrollment. There's the homestead tax rates over from 2015 to 2021, and then there's the budget revote schedule. So I would like to, David, do you want to present anything? I know there were some emails going back and forth. Do you want to talk about things in general terms first, and then we can kind of have a more detailed discussion?
Sure. In general, taking a look at preparing for an additional budget vote, before we went to the ballot box on May 11th, we presented the board 2 additional scenarios that were options, and that's a starting point for our discussions about what we would like to do. And this is an important time this evening to get guidance from the board on what the board would like us to bring to the Finance Committee. We have had a meeting with administration as a group, but also Lisa and I are meeting with each school to talk about budget items and potential savings that could be included, you know, should they be needed. So we've taken a look at that. And I'll turn the other conversation over to the board and to Lisa, but that's the mode that we're in to be prepared for a budget vote. The one other thing I would add in this discussion is that for the timing of the vote, we have asked the city and town clerks if the vote could possibly be on Wednesday the 9th instead of Tuesday the 8th, because at Barry Town School, that would allow for less disruption when school is remote because of the traffic and conditions for the vote. It would be on a day that was already a half a remote day. So if the board approves of this, we would like to tell the town clerks and the city clerk that we'd like the vote moved to the 9th.
Okay. So I guess I will just throw open the floor and let you all weigh in on your thoughts about guidance for the Finance Committee to consider as we talk about another revote and what we should do to revise the budget. So is there anybody that would like to chime in first? Guy, quick with the hand up. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, this might be for Lisa, because one of the accusations I've heard, and I've heard many, so there are probably at least 13, so we lost by 12 votes. What is a fair number to expect as a carryover for a $50 million budget? And I ask that because when I operated nonprofits, there was a rule of thumb of a 6-month operation in case a nonprofit went under. And we're not a nonprofit, but we're a school. And so, and I know we've talked about this in the past, so I would just like to hear that number because we've been accused of, having, huge amounts of money. And, we have $50 million budget.
I'm not sure if there is a standard amount of money to carry forward. I always think you should budget appropriately, and it isn't a goal to have a large surplus or certainly not to have a deficit. So I think that since I came to Barry, I have always tried to budget appropriately based on the needs and the resources that the administration puts forward and what we expect for revenue. So I guess that would be my answer.
Okay. Thank you. Sarah?
It's kind of what Guy was speaking. So I did go through the 22 budget again, and especially looking at the financial numbers that were included in this board packet, it looks like we're looking at a surplus of about 1.4 million for this year. I know that's not realistic based upon what we actually budgeted. A lot of that's related to COVID, but I wanted to let at least members of the board know. I went back and I kind of compared our overage or over budgeting from 21 to what we had in FY20, and I did identify a couple of line items that I've asked Lisa and the administration to look at where it looks like we may have over budgeted a little bit in FY20 as well. So I mean, I'm hoping, I'm not sure what will come of it. I'm not sure what the situations are regarding those lines, but it is something that we're looking at and trying to limit what we can and make sure that we're not if we were over budgeted this year, we were over budgeted the prior year, maybe, maybe we can cut back some of those lines. I'm not positive, but I have asked them to look at them. Beyond that, I think we should definitely revisit the options 2 and 3 from draft 4 at the finance meeting and see where that takes us. I'm not really focused on that we lost the vote by 12 votes. I'm more concerned with that's a large number of people voted us down. So it's not, we lost by 12, we lost by over 1,000.
Okay, thank you. Wow, Renee and Alice at the same time. So Renee, go ahead.
So I just wanted to share, I reached out to folks. I just put out a thing on Facebook and said, hey, if you guys can tell me why people are voting down, please do. Here's my email. And I did get some responses, and I just wanted to share those because I won't be at the finance committee meeting, I don't think. But I just wanted to share it out. So one person expressed concerns about using the one-time money for positions that could down the road lead to a large tax increase. Because if we put it in, we use the one-time funds, and then they're gone, then then the budget will go up if we try to keep those positions. So that was a concern from one person. Also, I mean, some people were quite frank in saying they voted it down because the kids haven't been in school. And then the other piece that was pretty loud to me was, please don't cut our programs and please don't cut sports. So I just wanted to share those things from people who live in Berrytown, that's what they shared with me.
Okay, thank you. David, did you have your hand up?
Yes, and I was just going to echo what Sarah has said before when we were talking about the surplus. School budget should always have a surplus, but it's a little unique this year because if you take a look at COVID-related surpluses, there might be a surplus in an athletic transportation line because we didn't travel to schools to play different teams. There's also a surplus as a result of unfilled paraprofessional positions. They were definitely needed, and it was quite difficult at the schools, and some students went without services some days. But the market for finding paraprofessionals is extremely tight, and we're continually needing to find paraprofessionals to meet those needs. So it's a budgetary need that we just couldn't fill the position.
Okay, thank you. Alice.
Two areas of concern that have been brought forward that I have heard from people who are my peers is the first, that we seem to have a lot of coaches, interventionists, special support people, but we're still getting the same results from our kids. Now, taking into consideration that this has been a strange and unusual year, but that is a concern that there's all this staff supposedly to assist kids, but we're still staying in the same place when the results come in. So that's one concern. And the other concern is that we as a board and as a district are looking at the school budget as a single issue. This is the school budget. When the taxpayers are looking at the cost of gasoline, the cost of food, an inflation rate of 4.2% anticipated. These are things that affect everybody. And so they would like us to broaden our viewpoint of what goes into a school budget, because it's what the taxpayers can afford, not what we would like or what we see as, I won't say important, but as we just keep going along doing the same thing over and over again and not taking into consideration that there are these other economic factors affecting the folks who pay for the school.
Okay, thanks, Alice. Guy? Guy, you have your hand up? Okay, maybe not. We'll come back to you. Gina, go ahead.
So I just have a couple things I've been thinking about, and I know we're going to talk about this more in finance next week. I want to make sure that people understand that contracts have been signed for teachers and administrators, and so we can't, and nor would we want to do some kind of broad riff right now to cut costs. It's not the goal of the board, but it's also not an option. So we're kind of limited in where we can cut we can cut expenses. And I was looking at the list of open positions, and I was hoping that that list was going to be a lot of stuff that we obviously didn't have to fill. And what I saw is that a lot of it is special ed and a lot of it's paras. And those are people that help our most vulnerable students. We can't just not have them because it's going to seriously impact the equity in the education that we're providing to our students. I feel like we're being asked to do the impossible. I feel like we're being asked to deliver high quality education and spend less money. And it's really hard to do those things if we want to have programs and we want to have sports and we want to have students who are increasing their test scores and excelling and meeting all of their graduation requirements and coming out and being successful adults. We have to spend the money to support them in doing that. And I feel really frustrated that we're being asked not to cut programs and sports, and we can't cut the things that are actually increasing our costs, which are benefits. We don't have any control over that part of the budget. We cannot do anything. And so I know that we're not going to make everybody happy with our decisions, but right now I feel like we can't make anybody happy because what we've been asked to do just simply is not within the realm of possibility.
Thanks, Gina. Guy, I'm going to come back to you.
Yeah, I guess I would ask those who have said that our central administration is too top heavy to give me some examples, number one, and number two, if you're so brave to try to micromanage this budget, because I have to be honest with you. I have trusted our administration. I have trusted our principals. I have trusted, people to bring the people in to serve the kids of our district. And I am certainly befuddled. We've offered. We've done some cuts. I don't know how closely people are following stuff, but if there's somebody with a lot more knowledge than me, please step up and tell me where that would be. I challenge you.
Thanks, Guy. I would say I'm just going to chime in here. I'm not going to get on a soapbox yet. I'm not promising I'm not going to get on one, but I'm not getting on one yet. I was having a conversation this morning. I've had lots of conversations with lots of people about the budget, and a lot of comments from people who are not sitting necessarily in the shoes of the administration or the board have really simple solutions for really complicated problems. And so I just throw that out there because this is a really complicated problem to try to solve this budget puzzle. And if we just had a magic wand and were able to solve it with one quick little, cut, we would do that. And it's definitely more complicated than that. And so I'll just leave it at that. Sarah, you're next.
I just want to build on what Gina was saying in that contracts and have already gone out. So the proposed budget from draft 4 was a 3.41% increase. And we've calculated that 3% of that is salaries, contracts, and health insurance that we do not have any control over. So the Finance Committee is going to go back to the budget and look to cut some more. But what the public is asking us to do is to cut a 0.4% increase. So I just want that very evident that we asked, what we have control over is less than 0.5% increase. And we are going to try and cut that down, but we cannot guarantee that that doesn't mean that athletics or that programs are not going to get cut.
Well, and to be clear, Sarah, what you're saying is we can cut more than 3%, but that means we have to cut programs and we have to cut sports and we have to cut things that will impact our students. And so we can cut and have a lower increase, but that means that we are going to be, as Gina pointed out, impacting the quality of the education that we're providing for our students. So we can cut more. And if the community is willing to not address the achievement gaps and not provide supports to our students that they need and not continue to provide the programs that we need, we can certainly do that. If the community is if that's what they want, if lower taxes is the goal, we can certainly do that. But at what cost is my question for you. David, you're next.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to speak to Guy's comment, and Guy, I'm not going to for a moment try to insinuate that I know more than you. I think that was part of your comment. If somebody knows more, but I did want to speak to the administrator question. If you look at the school quality standards that are issued by the Vermont State Board of Education, the school quality standards call for 1 full-time principal for every 10 teachers in a school. I was speaking to one of my administrators today who's supervising 60 teachers. If you look at the size of our schools, which are some of the largest in the entire state, and the district, which is one of the largest in the state, the administration load is comparable and in my opinion, right-sized. And if you look at just the one metric of school quality standards, we're certainly not overstaffed in principals.
Thank you. David, do you have another? No, okay. Josh Howard, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Oh, wait.
Wait, who's talking? Sorry, I can't see
It's
you.
Renee. I just had a clarifying question on what David just said.
Okay.
I want to make sure that I heard it right. So what you said is that it should be 1 principal for every 10 teachers?
That's correct. That's in school quality standards.
Okay, thank you.
Josh Howard?
Yeah, just to go with the guy's question there. I'm more than willing to sit down and go over line item by line item with you. I'm pretty good at budgets. But instead of looking for one giant cut from something big, sometimes the pennies add up to a lot. And that's really what you have to look at the budget. It's not sweeping cuts. It's a little bit here and there. They add up to quite a bit. And as far as not being able to do anything now, that's just a consequence of putting the chicken before the horse. It's just that's your fault for spending money before you had it guaranteed.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Tim?
I guess I'm just really curious. When we offered everybody a blanket 3% rate, did anybody think like far enough ahead, like, oh my God, I got to get this budget approved?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, it was ludicrous to offer this raise this year, given the volume of parents that were on school board meetings every week complaining all year long.
So I think you're confused. I'm gonna interrupt you because you're confused. You're talking about the raise that's for this current year. We're talking about FY22 budget, and we're just starting negotiations with teachers. There is no agreement right now on how much we're going to give them for a raise. So that's not decided yet. We have to include a number in our budget, so we have that included, but it's not decided yet. So the 3% that you're talking about is for this year. That's almost over.
Yeah, I mean, does anybody else remember all the parents at every school board meeting besides me? I remember them vividly, like 6 hours worth. I can't even imagine that. I can completely understand why people are irritated with the budget. I can completely understand it. That's all.
Thanks. Stacy?
Sorry. Yeah, thank you, Sonia. I just wanted to remind the board that there was an assistant director position that you decided to wait until budget discussion. And so I didn't want folks to forget that.
Thank you. Yes, we will not forget. I'm kind of just letting people comment, and I'm going to rein us all back in, I promise. Guy, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Josh and I probably disagree on a lot of things, but what we will agree upon is we do, as you look at the number of staff that we have left over, and I trust that our administration is looking at this. And the list of what we need or what we propose to hire is fairly lengthy. So is there anything in that list that we can do with or without, number one? Number two is, we have, class guidelines. We have, kid to teacher guidelines. So, I want us to continue to honor that. So to think of that, and I know you're thinking of those things, but I just want to, just reiterate that there isn't a willy-nilly, this is what we need type atmosphere.
Okay, so seeing no other hands raised, I'm going to start asking some questions. Are you all, the board, okay with the timeline that is in your packet under the BUUSD budget revote schedule? The whole top portion has strike through, and the bottom is May 12th through the 19th is FY22 budget revision 2 will be prepared. May 20th, the superintendent and finance committee will recommend a revision 2 for board approval, which means we will have a special meeting. The finance committee meets next Tuesday, the 18th. And then they would come up with a final recommendation, and then we would have a special meeting a week from today on the 20th. And then we would approve a warning. The warning would be posted on Friday the 21st for election. This says June 8th, but we would change that to June 9th to be able to accommodate or have less disruption for our Berrytown students, because they're already they can't be in school when we have an election in the building. And so this only disrupts half a day of in-person learning for them. Is everybody okay with that schedule, or does anybody have a question about the schedule? And I see a hand raise. Tamara?
Yes. I just wanted to say, in response, as a teacher at Berrytown School, in response to the couple of comments that people have made about how teachers have signed a contract for next year, and we're getting like a 3% or whatever was said. That is so not true. We have a letter of intent. We are negotiating our contract because it expires June 30th. So I just wanted to make that clear that this has nothing to do with next year's budget at this point, because we do not have a contract.
Correct. Thank you. Guy? Okay, does anybody else want to weigh in on the timeline? Are you all okay with the timeline? So I see some thumbs. If you're okay with the timeline as presented, David, go ahead.
I just want to confirm that the board is approving Wednesday the 9th. And if that's the case, I will let the town and city clerks know.
Okay, so is everyone okay with finance committee next Tuesday, a special meeting next Thursday to approve a budget, and then a budget revote on Wednesday, June 9th? Is everybody okay with that? Thumbs up. I see Sarah, Gina, Renee, Alice, Abby, Guy, I don't see. Tim is okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So next week, the policy committee is also supposed to meet on Monday, and I'm just wondering, in situations like this, and thinking about adding a third meeting for next week, is that something that I would take to the individual committee members about changing that date, or would I discuss it here, or do we just keep it and deal with the 3 meetings next week, or what?
Oh, you have 3 meetings because you're on finance.
Finance, policy, and the special board, it would be next week, yeah.
Yeah. You could definitely send out an email to your policy committee to see if they would be willing to reschedule. I would, that's definitely probably within the realm of possibility, but I know you're also talking about the equity policy, so that may not be possible.
Right, okay. That's fine, just that I would explore that offline with them. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so is everybody, I'm not hearing any objections, so we will move forward with that as a timeline. I've heard from a couple of people about why, some concerns about what had happened, and I'm wondering, Josh offered to post a revote exit survey, and he could make it, this is in your packet, it's basically 3 questions, and he could post it tomorrow and then close it down on Tuesday and have it ready for results for finance committee for Tuesday. And my question is, do you want him to do that? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 thumbs, 7 thumbs, 8 thumbs. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely, go ahead.
Can the survey include some sort of rating scale instead of being all or nothing on the questions about the different aspects of school?
We could.
Sonia, if I could, so we did that a couple of years ago. The finance committee put a questionnaire out like that, and the results of the ratings really actually didn't give us any information.
So we're just trying to, go ahead, Diane.
I can appreciate that, but as a parent, I would have a hard time on some level, saying no to a certain aspect, knowing it might be on the cutting block of the budget. So I just wondered if it would give more information on a couple of priorities that parents have. Maybe you don't rate it, but you say your top 2. It's just a suggestion to see if that would get some feedback that would be helpful for the discussion.
We might be able to do that. Maybe just you know what area of our school system is most important to you, and you can only pick 3, let's say, and so then they don't rank necessarily all of them. That may help. I'll have to talk to Josh to see if he can change that, but let me make a note about that.
Thank you.
Sarah, do you think that would be okay?
Yeah, I think that would help. But as far as we had it, I think it was like rated like 0 to 5 on our last survey we sent out like that, and the results were so varied. It all netted out to nothing.
Right. Yeah. So if we said choose your top 3, and someone chose, academics, transportation, and athletics, then at least we would know, oh, those are 3 areas we really shouldn't look at cutting, as an example. Okay. I will make a note to talk to Josh about that, and it sounds like we'll move ahead with that. There is in your packet the staff student enrollment, just as some data for you. That was included in the addendum, and then it was sent out separately to the full board because the formula was incorrect. So that's just there so that we understand how many staff we have in the district, as well as how many students we have in the district when we're looking at the big picture. And then one thing that I asked Lisa to do that I just want to run through right now is a 2015 to 2021 Berry City and Berrytown homestead tax rate. And I've heard over and over about how the board is not being fiscally responsible and how we have budgets that are out of control. And I just want to counter that with some actual data and math and facts. So I'm going to go through this. For Berry City, from FY15 to FY16, the increase from the prior year, this is tax rates, was a negative 1%. From 16 to 17 was 2%. From 17 to 18 was 1%. 18 to 19, 3%. 19 to 20, 2%. And then last year was a spike due to the change in the statewide negotiated health agreement, and that was 9%. And now this year, the proposed tax rate is 1%. So the average rate of the increase for Berry City over the last 5 years is 3%. And that's with the spike of 9% from last year. So Berrytown, the same exact information is from FY15 to 16, the increase for the tax rate was 1%. The tax rate increase from 16 to 17 is 0. From 17 to 18, negative 2%. For 18 to 19, 4%. And the same from 19 to 20, 4%. The spike last year was 10% in Berrytown. And this year is a negative 16%. Now I know people are from Berrytown, their heads are going to explode a little because how can it go down 16%? And I understand it's confusing because you don't have your reassessments yet. But this is data, these are facts, these are numbers, this is math. And so I'm just encouraging you to understand that we are being very fiscally responsible in our numbers, and we do not have widely outrageous budgets. And last year, there's a very good reason for why our numbers went up. And I would remind you that the budget passed last year. So if anybody would like to have that information or discuss it any further, I'd be happy to do that. Andrea, you have your hand up.
Yeah, it was actually on the survey. I'm just wondering on the survey if you should have a box to check off, like, are you a parent? What I would be thinking is that you might get a lot of responses from parents in the school system, but a lot of Allison's neighbors and Alice's neighbors and friends, etc. You might get just a set. You know what I mean? I think your results might be skewed because a lot of your surveys might just be answered from school parents, not from other taxpayers who do not have children in the school. So I think it would be beneficial to know who's actually responding to the survey.
Okay. Good point. I'll ask Josh if he can add that. Okay. Are there any other comments or questions? Josh Howard, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just got to call it out. That's a bit misleading saying that the Berrytown taxes are going to go down 16%. Being that's just going to be a tax rate, not the tax bill. It's just basic math. If you ask for more money, we're going to be paying you more money. So our bills will be going up. The only reason the tax rate is going down is because you haven't had an appraisal in 15 years. And we're still waiting on results from that. But yeah, tax bills are going to go up unless you went ahead and bulldozed your home. Houses appreciate. That's just what they do. We haven't had a lot of new construction, new families coming into town, creating new tax revenue. So yeah, the taxes will go up. Tax rate might go down, but that's kind of irrelevant.
Well, I hear your point, and I think we've talked about this before. This is the data, and this just is all I'm doing is presenting you data and facts in very simple math. I understand there's another layer to that, which is Berrytown hasn't done a reassessment in many years, and so now Berrytown residents are being faced with an increase in their assessed value, which will then mean that they're going to have potentially higher tax bills. But the reality is there's no other way for us to present this data. It is your tax rate is going down 16%, and that's math. So I understand that may be, you may feel like that's being disingenuous, and it's not. This is math, and this is how it's going. This is how we calculate it. As far as more people moving in, I would encourage you to think about the fact that we need to think about how our schools are attracting people. And when we continue to keep cutting budgets and not spending money on our programs and our students, we're really maybe shooting ourselves in the foot by not attracting more families to our district. So I would encourage you to think about that when you are, out campaigning against the budget. Who's next? Lisa?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to expand a little bit on the tax rate chart. And so much of this hinges on the CLA, which again, we have no control over. But when you do look at the tax rates, and you can go to the Vermont Tax Department website and see what the tax rates are for every single town in Vermont, Berrytown is extremely low. So you have a very low tax rate, as well as, I know this isn't something we want to boast about or we're proud of, but our per pupil spending is the lowest in the state of Vermont as well. And I think that, that's pretty easy to understand. The funding formula for education is not easy at all. Understanding the tax rates and how they change based on CLA is complicated. But what's not complicated is how much we spend per pupil, and that's what you vote on. And so Berry schools are very efficient. And I think that, administrators, I see them working so hard to try to keep this budget down. And that's what they've done for years. We do not have more administration than we need. In fact, we're struggling. And so it's difficult to find the balance between we want our students to improve, but make cuts. So thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so Josh, you have another comment?
Back to the whole tax rate thing. I mean, another thing people got to think about as tax bills increase, you got to remember, like, people around this area, people are losing their homes. People are going to be evicted here soon. It's been a tough year. They just don't have the money to give you. And so you can tell us all day long how it's so important, and because the teachers need it, because the union said so. The reality is people are living in hotels. People don't have an extra however many $100 a month to pay towards an increase in tax bill, especially those who rent. As a landlord myself, I'm not a charity. When my tax bill goes up in Berry City, I transfer it over to the rent. And of course, you guys probably know this, with the whole second home taxing in the state, it affected commercial properties, which also affected rentals as well, which I guess maybe some people don't know that. But so I pay a higher tax rate on those places. I will be raising rent as the taxes go up, and people just can't afford it. And that's what it just comes down to. You have to get creative with how you come up with the budget, how you cut costs. To say that you need every single administrator, have you really looked at it? Have you really gone through and gone line item by line item, talk to each person what they do on a day-to-day basis? I would bet that you haven't. I mean, just a couple weeks ago, you guys went ahead and put a vice principal in a position that has been vacant for 2 years. The reason it was open was because you made the old vice principal a co-principal. It's the same amount of people doing the same job, and you literally made it 3 people. It's getting creative like that, saying maybe that wasn't needed. I know the job was hard for 2 people to handle without a vice principal, but that's called work. That's hard work. I've never been afraid to ask somebody to work hard. And I think that's what we need to start doing now.
So I'm going to respond to a couple of things you said. And the first thing is, if I felt like we were asking for an outrageous amount for our students, I would agree with you. But the thing that I'm going to push back on is the city budget passed and the municipal budget passed in Berrytown. So for some reason, there's there's a lot of other things that are playing into this school budget. And you can come and tell us every single meeting that it's the cost and it's too much. But how come those other budgets were approved? So, we could go back and forth all night, Josh, and you probably have all night, but I have a long executive session ahead of me. So we're probably not going to keep going. I'm going to move on to Sarah. She has a comment or a question.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you, Lisa, for putting those together. It's actually really interesting to see. So on average, Berry City's tax rate's gone up 3% since FY15, and I'm saying tax rate, not tax bill. And Berrytown's has actually, if I add this up, it's 1%. I mean, so we don't have any control over the appraisal. We don't have any control over the value of your house. What we have control over is the tax rate. We're being fiscally responsible with the tax rate, and we can't do anything more than that.
Thanks. Lisa, do you still have your hand up? No? Okay. So I'm going to move on from this. I think we need to hear some guidance from the board about what they would like to see from the finance committee. So when we have a special meeting next Thursday, what are we hoping as a full board to be able to see so that we can approve a warning and then move on with the rest of our timeline? So Guy, go ahead.
So I guess my advice is, let's take a look at, what amount of money we have left over. We were criticized for applying, our carry forward to the budget, but if, you can't have it both ways. When I talked to somebody, they said, well, if you apply your carryover, what happens next year? And are you going to be able to make it up? If we have the money, let's apply it to the tax rate, period, amen. I would continue to take a look at, positions, but what I'm hearing is we could continue to stabilize. I'm hearing Berrytown is going to, be on an increase. I trust the administration to make a decision based on, the guidelines that we have set, and, go forward from there. I guess the other thing I would say is, in terms of tax rates and property taxes and stuff, I sit on the Board of Civil Authority. And here's what I've always asked about people who complain about their taxes. Would you sell your house for what it's been appraised for? And about 99% out of 100, they would say no. Then I go, that's what's happening right now. I've had properties sell around me for, $20,000 to $30,000 more than they probably should be selling. That's the market right now. And so my response to the tax rate question in Berrytown, the taxes probably are not going to change, and they're probably going to go down a little, and some will go up. But those who go up probably deserve it.
Okay, I'm going to actually call on Alice, because Alice, you, I think specifically had a question about the Assistant Special Ed Director, and I want to make sure we bring that up because I don't want to lose track of it. And so I want you to weigh in as far as guidance, and I want to make sure that we understand how we're going to move forward.
I'm not quite clear on your question.
Well, you were concerned about the candidate that was being presented to us, and you said
not the candidate, the position. And the position, my question about the position was, should we be going ahead hiring staff without a budget? And that is an overall question. And that is what gives it, can lead to the impression that we are just going on, not making any evaluation of what we're doing, and it's perception. And that's the piece that if we just keep hiring people and asking for more and asking for more, that's what gives the perception in the community that we are not being fiscally responsible. So that was my question as to whether or not we should be filling that position while we do not have a budget.
So Alice, I'm going to push back and ask you to answer the question. Do you think we're being fiscally irresponsible by hiring all of the people in the positions that are currently open because people have resigned, people have retired, and people have decided to move on? Do you think that we should not fill every single position right now?
If you have classroom teachers and you need those classroom teachers for students, those positions if you additional administrative, some other way of, if there might be some other way to do that.
Okay, so I lost you halfway through that, so I only caught about a third of what you said.
If we have classroom teachers that are required to meet the needs of the students by being a classroom teacher, those should be filled. But to go ahead and just hire additional administrative staff without a thorough evaluation of what other way we could possibly be conducting that business, that's what we need to do.
So I'm gonna push back one more time, Alice, because you know special ed well, and you understand the ramifications of special ed. So we have one special ed director for all 3 schools, and then we have the 2 assistant directors. And maybe Stacy can chime in on how many special ed students we actually have. Is it Are we providing the best services by only having one special ed director for all of those students?
I don't know.
So how many students do we have, Stacy?
We have about 550 students on IEPs in the district.
So I would say one special ed director for 550 students is probably not equitable in the management of all those IEPs and making sure we're providing the education that they deserve.
There are other questions though that need to be answered. Are we doing the right thing? Are we using all the technology possible to provide what is necessary for special education students? Do we have administrative support, not at the administrative level, but do we have appropriate administrative assistance in the special education office? These are all questions that come up.
I think there's one administrative assistant, and so we'd have one administrative assistant and one special ed director for 550 students. So Alice, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to put you on the hot seat, but you brought up the question, so I'm going to throw it back on you. But there are a million hands raised right now. So first, David.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say, and I understand the concern, and part of it, is about perception of doing any hiring when we do not have a budget passed. But I wanted to say, we earlier in this meeting, we talked about the need to have the students in Barry make progress towards being proficient. And I talked about how our scores are lagging, not just this year, but over multiple years. And it's true in special education that it is extremely difficult. It's twice as hard for special education students to make that progress because of the lagging skills based on their disabilities. So with all that being said, special ed directors are also supervising the many special educators that we have in our system. So I understand the concern about hiring, but I think it would be short-sighted to cut back on the infrastructure that serves our neediest students.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I've completely lost track of who raised their hand next. So I think it was Sarah. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you. I was just going to ask Stacy if you could just give us a general idea of what the role of assistant director of special ed actually does. And I mean, in my opinion, it's probably not something that could be picked up by other people, but could you just explain to us what the role actually entails?
Sure. Between the three of us, we act as LEA for each of the buildings, which is the person who's responsible for making final decisions around IEPs, supervising all of the special educators, SLPs, OTs, school psychologists, special education paraeducators, et cetera. Collaborating with principals and supporting them when they have questions about how to better meet the needs of students on IEPs. And so that assistant directors do a lot of that. And then in my role, I do a lot of that, but I also, I'm responsible for the budget, for the grant writing, for the overall hiring and supervision in the district, et cetera.
Okay, and just as a follow-up, so we've had, in the past year, we had 2 assistant directors. Were there a slate of students and special educators that they oversaw roughly even? So, I mean, we said we have over 500 of these students in the school, so we were expecting 1 assistant director to supervise maybe 250 kids and the special educators as well.
We divided up our responsibilities by being point of contact for, I'm sorry about the dogs, for the building, so that to try to streamline things so that the staff in each building would know which person to be in touch with. So each building, each special educator, knew who that kind of to contact with their concerns. And in doing that, we took into consideration trying to make things equitable in terms of number of staff, number of students. So was it, split completely equally? No, but it was fairly equal. That was definitely something we wanted to do. I would just add, and then I can put my hand down, around the administrative assistant. We did, before we became centralized under the under the SU, our special ed department had, I think, 3.5 administrative assistants, and now we have 1. So that's been a cost savings. In addition, we moved last year from the co-director. We had a co-director model and an assistant director to 1 director and 2 assistants for an additional cost saving. So I just wanted to remind the board of that.
Okay, thanks, Stacy. I have Chris next, but is it Chris Hennessy? Did you have your hand up?
I put it back down, but just to thank you for calling on me anyway, though, Sonia, just to kind of jump into what Stacy was saying. I mean, the role of a special ed administrator in the building, speaking for me and Hayden, is just absolutely essential. I want to point out that if we did not have that, the role of LEA and supervising special ed case managers, paraeducators, behavioral interventionists who work with kiddos on IEPs would fall under our purview. And that would be a real tipping point. I think it's safe to say, Hayden, for us, if that had to happen, it would be a great disservice to those students and to our colleagues. It's really an essential role to have that administrative support in the buildings. And, and at Berry City, we do have a higher number of kiddos who receive special education services. So I just want to put that out there. This is not a superfluous extra. It is really essential for our day-to-day operations and most importantly, helping the kids. I just want to really put that out there.
Thanks, Chris. Renee?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, and I think David already did this, but just to make sure everybody here has this, is that we're talking about both positions currently for the assistants are open. We're talking about, at this point, filling 1 of the 2, correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. Guy?
No question until we talked about specifics.
Okay. Abby?
I wanted to bounce off of something Sarah said and ask Stacy, are there responsibilities and roles that the assistant special ed directors have that could not be filled because of licensure issues or responsibility issues by other admins or other staff within the building? And if so, could you speak to that?
I think in terms of particularly when we're responding to sort of legal action, if there are any parental, due process or mediations, those are things that special ed directors are sort of specialize in. I suppose that, the supervision and evaluation of special educators and the acting as LEA in day-to-day meetings could fall to principals. But I think, Chris has spoken to that again, with the numbers and the needs of our students, I'm not sure that's reasonable for our principals.
I'd just like to also advocate and say I agree. And I think this is one thing the board should consider, that in the short term, it might seem like it saves us money, but it could risk legal action or money through mediation costs, because you need to have those admins who understand the system and understand how to ensure that students' rights are being protected. So though it may right now seem like we are saving money on an admin, down the road, we could be increasing our legal costs significantly and very unexpectedly.
Okay, thank you. Dina?
So I think that we have a lot of people on this call who've spent a lot of time managing teams and organizations. I personally have spent a lot of time in business school, and I've spent a lot of time in human resources, and I've never read any strategy that says you should starve your employees of resources and burn them out so that they want to leave. I think it's really easy to talk in the theoretical about cutting positions or not filling positions, but I think that we cannot overemphasize the damage that it causes to morale and the risk we run of having administrators walk out the door if we don't give them the resources that they need to do their job. I think we have an incredible group of administrators in our school and teachers in our schools. And I think we're really lucky that so many of them are committed to our district and our students, but that only gets you so far. We have to give them the tools that they need to do their job. And I'm concerned about the cavalier way we're talking about. We'll just find another way to get things done. I've never heard anybody in our district say, well, yeah, this is an easy job, and I have 7 hours in the day, but I only need to use 5. I mean, I think that people are already really overextended. And I think that it's really, really expensive to replace people. And it's, if we were in an environment where there were 50 great candidates for every single position, it would be an irresponsible way to run an organization. And I don't think that that's the environment that we're in. So I think that, I don't know, Abby, maybe it was you. I think you were talking about long-term implications in terms of the legalities, which is a great point. And I think that we have to talk about the long-term implications in terms of morale and in terms of retaining staff. Everyone is in theory replaceable, but it can be really, really painful to replace people. And I would hate to see people walk out the door because we're sort of making these casual decisions that have a pretty huge impact.
Thanks, Gina. Guy?
I'm good. Sorry. I'm good.
Okay. Chris Parker.
Thanks, Sonia. I had one question for Stacy, and I see that on the list of positions that are posted, we have 8 special educator positions, and the 2. Hey, Guy, could you mute maybe? I see a lot of feedback. Thanks so much. And then the 2 assistant directors. And I wondered, is this a normal amount, or is this more than we would expect to see in a normal school year? Just wondering if there's more folks in the special ed department leaving this year than normal.
It's not unusual. I think 2 of those positions, Chris, were new for the C program. So I think we had 7, I believe, special educators, and I could be off by 1, Chris, I'm sorry. It's not unusual. It's a little higher than most, than some years, and I have had a couple of folks who are leaving, who are veteran folks who, quite frankly, said they love this district. They've loved their time here, but it's a lot of work, and for their quality of life, they're moving to another district. They're moving to other things. I think both of my assistant directors are in that place too, and I respect that. They both have young children, and it's not an easy job, and it's not a 9-to-5 job.
Thanks. And then the other question I have is when folks are leaving, that seems like a lot in one district. Do we do exit interviews about why they're leaving, if it's other than like family types of issues about job satisfaction and that kind of thing?
Well, I think Carol has said before that the HR department does one that is, I believe, online. I generally talk to folks when they're leaving, so I do my own sort of exit conversation. I think Abby can attest to that. When she left Barry, we had a conversation. So I talk to folks, but then there also HR does their exit interview as well.
Thank you.
So I just want to point out that I asked Lisa to pull together the staff, the number of staff that we have across the whole district, and the number of students. And I'm just going to share that in case you haven't had an opportunity to look at it. There's 524.33 staff in the district, and there are 2,328 students in the district. So this is a fairly large organization, and I think you have to, when you see that list of positions that are open, and you realize that it seems like a lot, you also have to realize there's over 500 employees in our district. So that I think, hey, David, can you mute Abby? because she forgot. Thank you. Awesome. So I think I just want to make sure that people understand it feels like a lot of people are resigning, retiring, moving on, but in the grand scheme of over 500 staff and over, 2,300 students, that, this is a really big district with a lot of people and a lot of moving parts. So I want you to just get that big picture view to understand. And when Stacey's talking about the special ed, I mean, as she said, there's 550 special ed students. There are 550 students who are on IEPs. And so we have to recognize that, we as a board are tasked with, managing the finances for the district, but we also are not tasked with micromanaging our administrators. That's why we have hired them to do this job. So with that, I'm going to go back to questions about guidance, because we I know I took us off on a tangent there with the question for Alice, but I hope that helped to maybe answer or give some guidance to the Finance Committee about how the board feels about that and about the roles of that position. So is there anyone that wants to offer up some very specific guidelines about where we should, what they would like to see next week from the Finance Committee? Tim.
Cost of living or below.
And when you say cost of living or below, are you asking that the cost of living, the increase be in your tax rate, which is how much you're paying, or is it the increase in the per pupil spending, or is it the increase over last year's budget? Because there's three different numbers that we're looking at. So I want to understand and make sure that people understand what you're actually asking for. So can you share with us?
Increase over last year's budget, cost of living. That would be a book costs more, toilet paper costs more. It costs 1.9% more to employ somebody. I don't know what that answer is.
Okay, so you're basically saying that we need to dramatically cut the budget so that we can take into account cost of living or below.
Correct.
Okay.
That's what people are after.
Okay, so but that doesn't also take into consideration that the tax rate is completely, like I just shared with you, our proposed budget right now is 1%. Is that below cost of living?
If it's 1.9, I'm fine with it. But the problem is that people are not understanding that the increases in our budget also reflect the fact that we have to pay more for insurance. And that is quadruple to whatever that number is when we have to figure in their retirements and their pensions. Because the more we pay people now, the more we have to pay them in their pension.
Okay, well that's a little bit of
it's a lot.
Well, yes, but it's a little bit of a muddy situation because that's a whole nother conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So what I hear you saying is you wanted a cost of living or less increase from our budget from last year to this year. But then I just heard you also say that you are fine with the 1% for Berry City. And so
but we haven't offered them, we haven't done cost of living year after year after year. We keep granting more pay raises.
So are you talking about pay raises? But I'm asking about the budget. I'm not asking about pay raises.
I think that we need to figure out how to cut budget to meet people's standards so they will leave us alone.
Okay.
People are concerned. This is, Sonia, I know you guys think I'm crazy, and that's fine. I don't actually care what people think. The point is that we just spent 1 year arguing and listening to people complain about the school. Then we're going to increase their tax rate, give them the finger and tell them we're going to do this anyway. That's what it sounds like to the average voter.
So I hear what you're saying, but Tim, I think the hard part is that on the ballot, it says that the budget is going up 3.41% because that's the equalized pupil. That's what is increasing. But your tax rate is only going up 1% in Berry City, and it's going down in Berry Town because of the reassessment and the assumed change in the CLA. So are people worried about that number, or are they worried about how much they're actually having to pay?
So here's on my street where I live, there's a house. When that guy has to pay so much taxes and so much school tax, so he can't afford his house, who do we talk to? Who should we call? Gloria, who's 80, 2 doors down, who do I call when she can't afford her house anymore? There's nobody, and nobody cares.
Well,
and we're just part of the plan that doesn't care.
Well, I wouldn't.
And I think that people are listening to that, and they're watching us, and they're watching us throw around huge sums of money, and it's just like, what in the hell are we doing? And I get that we're in a hard place. We either have to sell the fact that this pension and the budget and the health care is all tied together, and we've got to support this, or we got to stop doing it, one or the other.
Well, we have to what? Stop educating kids?
No, stop supporting it. Saying, well, we're not paying anymore, and this is the end of it.
Well, we don't have an option. It's a state negotiated health,
Correct.
so we don't have an option to do that.
So we have to educate the people that we are being forced to pay the health care for these people so they will understand.
Okay. That's something that we're trying to do. So I appreciate that.
Okay, I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you. Alice?
Yes, what? Where are we going with this?
What's your guidance?
I think I will go back to what I have relied upon from listening to the individuals who are in my age bracket and circumstances, is that we can't think of our budget as a single issue. We need to take it in context with what is happening in the rest of the economy, and the fact that people will not be able to afford any kind of a substantial tax raise, and they will lose their homes. They will have to sell them. They will have to move. They'll move in with relatives, wherever it is, or they'll completely move out of state because it's cheaper to live in North Carolina than it is to live in Vermont. For people who have lived here their entire lives, that's extremely difficult to have them feel that way. So what we have to do is look at it in context with what is happening economically and do our best to keep a level tax rate for everyone.
Okay, so would you agree that 1% is close to level, or you think it needs to be no increase?
Given the information that we have about
Alice, you're breaking up.
The available funding that we have about our general fund and our available monies beyond that, our carryover funds, it would be very nice to say that we are having a zero tax rate budget, a zero budget. If we can come in as close to that, under 1%, that would be very good to do that.
So
and
I'm going to ask you
be successful.
I'm asking you the same question that I
folks
just
don't understand.
I'm going to ask you the same question I just asked him, though. Do you want are you worried about the increase over last year, knowing that prices are going up and the the context that you talk about. We are also paying increased costs because, you know, we're running a school district, but you're asking us to not to, we have to cut things to be able to be at zero. So help me understand how to do that math.
I think we've been nibbling around the edges at things that maybe there are bigger issues that we need to be looking at. And certainly not now on our third budget attempt, but we maybe need to be looking at bigger issues of our student population, of our maintenance costs, of our debt service on any of the machinery and facilities that we have. But right at the moment, what we have to be able to explain to people is when they're looking at when looking at the ballot or at the information and seeing that it's $50 million, that it's a 3 whatever percent tax rate, it needs to be absolutely clear to people what the expectation is for what they're going to have to actually pay out every year or every quarter. And I don't think that's coming across very clearly to people. So they look at that and it scares the living daylights out of them to see that. And that's what we have to be able to remove from the public specter, is that fear that they could possibly, because of what we're doing as a school board, that they could possibly lose everything they have. And that's the important piece. You can only support what the public can pay for. And if the people believe they can't pay for it, they are not going to support us, no matter what we say. No, that's just human nature. So it has to be perfectly clear, and we have to say that we are doing our best, giving it our best, and using what the communities and the individuals in them can pay for.
Okay. Guy, do you have some guidance for us?
Yeah, ton of guidance. So somebody much smarter than me said, you know, the only thing they can count on are death and taxes. So you know, the bottom line is what we're talking about. We have negotiated health pieces. We have negotiated, you know, salaries. We have negotiated. So you know, the bottom line is staff. That's the bottom line. Okay, that's no secret. It's no secret to anybody. You can cut around the edges all you want. The other thing I want to remind people, and you know, I hate to say this, I'm a gardener, but I hate to turn over old dirt. But when we turned down Act 46 and the state made us merge, we left a lot of money on the table, number one. Number two, we left a lot of tax stabilization on the table. I just want to say that. So, you know, if you're looking at, you know, cutting another 2.5% from the budget, you're looking at staff. You're not looking at anything else. You're looking at staff.
Okay, thank you. Abby?
I think I'm going to try to word this in a way that is everybody will understand and makes sense from my brain to everybody. So good luck. I think it would be helpful if the finance committee could come back to the board and the communications committee with side-by-side comparisons of, regardless of what actually happened, the budget that got passed last year compared to the budget that got passed this year. So people can see some of those hard numbers to see that the budget itself is not increasing. And I think kind of what Alice said is with some other things is part of the challenge is that people are seeing that big number and people are seeing the 3.4% and not understanding that, like you said, Sonia, that's not actually the tax. I mean, that is, but that's not actually impact on their tax bill. So I think figuring out maybe how to present the budget through other scopes, through comparisons side by side, through percentage increase on just the budget from last year to this year, to help people see other views of it rather than just that, like, 59, the huge numbers. I think that those numbers are good. People are getting stuck on, so we have to help people see it from other angles rather than just where everybody keeps kind of stopping.
Okay, thank you. Renee?
Yeah, I wanted to acknowledge what Alice is saying and what she's hearing from some of the constituents, but at the same time, I feel like I have to push back a little bit on that, in that ours was one of 3 budgets in the entire state that did not pass. And I'm confident that other districts had more than a 1% increase. So and everybody in the state, everybody in the country is in the same position with this stuff. So I'm not confident that it's about the money. I'm not confident that the reason people are voting it down is because they're going to lose their houses, specifically in Barrie, but in Montpelier, they're fine. And everywhere else in the state, they're fine. So, I mean, and based on the feedback that I've gotten, a lot of people voted it down for reasons other than money. And so I'm feeling like at this point, is it more about, is there some sort of transparency issues where people aren't feeling like they're fully informed? Or is it that they're voting for reasons other than money? Certainly, I'm sure some people are, just like in every district, some people are. But being one of 3 in the entire state, I don't think that our community is so unique that it's solely about money. That's all.
Okay, David?
Oh, yes, the one item that I was going to add is, and I totally understand the burden that taxes put on folks with fixed income. But I wanted to note that Barrie has, I think, approximately 60% of our taxpayers who are able to have tax sensitivity credits. So that's just something to consider.
Awesome. Thank you. Guy still has his hand up. Alice still has her hand up. And Josh, you still have your hand up. Okay, Alice and Guy. Josh, do you have something else you want to say? Because we're wrapping this up.
Yeah, something for the finance committee next week is just be creative. Going back to the special educator, assistant director thing. Instead of filling a position, here's an idea: is just at each school make someone in charge of the special educators there, pay them 15 or 20% more than their current salary. Then you eliminate the administrative position and save money. And as far as like the budget's not passing, I'm not passing, but pass everywhere else didn't have an 11% increase last year. The school budget didn't pass, but the town budget did in Barrytown. Barrytown had a 2.14% increase in the budget. They're trying to get as close to zero as possible. At one of the first meetings, they said, I'd like to see around 2%. I think Paul Malone said 3%. And I'm starting to think like, 11% last year, that's a lot. That was a lot. Maybe it should be closer to 0% increase this year.
Okay, thank you. Finance committee, you definitely have your work cut out for you. I know you didn't chime in, but you will be at, you're obviously at your committee next week. So I'm sure I will see you then. We're going to move on to committee reports. And I've gone through the list to see, hey, Guy, can you mute yourself, please? I've gone through the list to look at who we just had committee reports. So I'm really going to just speed through these. The only people that are really going to have to give a committee report: communications, negotiations, the RAB board, and then we're also going to hear an update from the CVC governance committee. Those are the 4 reports because everybody else we heard from last time we met, and so we're just going to like breeze through everything else. So Alice, you're up first with communications.
Right, communication. We dedicated a significant amount of time to the upcoming budget vote, how that was going to be transmitted to the voters, what we could do to get the information out. Josh Allen spoke about his postcard that he designed and sent out about the various websites and Front Porch Forum that was being utilized to get the information out. And we also talked about developing an annual communications calendar, because there are some things over the course of a school year or the entire year that need to be brought up routinely and publicized so that people know about those things. And it's not just the graduations and the move ups and things like that, but administratively how things are going on in the district. So that's what we're looking down the road at our next communication committee meeting, is to start laying out in coordination with the mission vision statement and with the recovery plan, how we can best publicize and get everybody involved in knowing those things. Now we'll have budget vote, do it again.
Awesome, thank you. Gina, negotiations?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We have a thing. We have one thing that I can say, but I have to find it, Sonia. I'm not prepared.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna skip to the RAB board. Alice, you're back up again.
The RAB board just had a really good report from the cosmetology department. That's really exciting to hear that, and also to hear the fact that the tech kids are back in their labs and being able to have the hands-on experience. They've had a very good year doing the best they can with the offsite and the remote learning, but most certainly in the technology fields of whatever it may be, healthcare or automotive, any one of those, and including the cosmetology, where the young people who are in that program have not been able to interact with other human beings. So all of their practice work have been with their mannequins. So to be back in the classroom was suddenly a good thing for them to do that. And then, of course, talking about Penny moving on to her new position and all the things that she has done for the Career Center with the staff there, with the students, and how successful the Central Vermont Career Center has become because of Penny's work, which shows up in this year that they have had more applications than they have ever had, almost 400 applications. And as of right now, their entire classes are all filled.
Wow, awesome. Thank you. Gina, I'm going to go back to negotiations.
Yep. The association and the board negotiating teams met on May 10th from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. The parties established ground rules and set dates for the next 4 negotiation sessions. The parties agreed to exchange proposals during those meetings.
Awesome. Thank you. Next, Guy, CVCC Governance Committee.
Yeah, we met on May 11th and took a look at the 3 areas of tech centers that have freestanding boards, and took a look at their board structure and had a long discussion about what the board structure could look like. And so there's some notes being put together about that. It was very, very helpful.
Great.
And the other thing I would add is, to Alice's piece, it was nice to hear Penny's last RAB board report.
Great, thank you. Sarah, you have your hand up?
Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit, but were we supposed to move on the assistant special ed director position?
Well, it wasn't included in our packet, so I think
Okay.
we'll just have to come before the board at our next meeting, which is next Thursday, so we could discuss it then, I suppose. But if not, then it will have to be at a later meeting. Thank you for remembering that. So next is other business and roundtable, and I want to note that I have moved all of the building reports that are normally included as part of the agenda as just part of your packet, but not necessarily something that we're going to go line by line by line through. So if there, I will ask each administrator from the schools if they have anything that they want to add or that they want to share during roundtable, but we're not going to go through each building report. If there's something that someone has a question on, then this is the place to ask about those, reports. So with that being said, we will move to other business and roundtable, and I got to get my list. Sarah, you are up first.
The only thing I have is that if there's anybody in the community who has input into where they think we should go with this next budget, my email and cell phone number are listed on the website. I have spent a lot of time looking at this year's budget compared to last year's budget and even the year before. I spent about 4 hours over the past 24 hours going line by line, but if anybody has any ideas, I would welcome them before Tuesday's meeting.
Great, thanks. Guy?
Yeah, I just want to thank staff and the board for being patient and listening, and it's a tough time, and we'll get through this.
Thanks, Guy. Tim?
I don't really have anything. Thank you.
Okay. Sheena?
Just want to congratulate the administrators in the schools on looking like you maybe are going to have some in-person graduation and step-up ceremonies. That's really exciting. And I know it's been a long year. I hope that we're able to do that.
Thank you. Alice?
It's just so wonderful to see the kids back in school. That is so important, to get their activities going, to get their learning in the classroom taking place, and from my point of view, to get them away from the screens. They have enough screens in their life that it's time they need a teacher and in person, and I'm so glad to see that. And I would just ask that if at any of the schools, if we have any out-of-state field trips planned, if the principals could just state what those out-of-state field trips are for the record. So we'll go forward from there, and we'll have some happy times with continuing with our kiddos in school.
Okay. Abby?
I just wanted to say I saw in the central office packet that staff are going to be trained in Orton Gillingham, which I think is really exciting. I think that's a great use of everybody's time, and I'm glad that that's able to get started.
Awesome. Chris?
Yeah, I want to say my 8th graders are thrilled to be back in school. They are exhausted, and that makes their parents very, very happy that they are so tired from school. So thank you for all the work being done there. And they are very excited about having an in-person 8th grade graduation. So thank you to everyone who's working hard to make those graduations at all the buildings happen for kids and families to mark big changes in life. So thank you very much for all that work.
Awesome. Renee?
Just want to thank everybody for the hard work you're doing. I know having 2 budgets go down is really hard. And that I just hope as we move forward that we continue to remember that our North Star is the kids and what's best for them.
Thank you. I see David and Mary Ellen have their hands raised. Mary Ellen, would you like to go first?
Or David, do you want to go first?
I just wanted to thank everyone for their work. I know that you know, the commitment to Barry and its students are there, and this is a difficult time. We will get through it. I don't have any other comments than that. Thank you.
Okay. Mary Ellen?
I just want to circle back on the position that is being put on hold to the next board meeting. And is there any way that we can go forward with that? As we've had many positions in the waiting period, the candidates have withdrawn or found other positions in the meantime. We know that the market is really scarce. Can we do something? Is there a way to?
Well, so I think the challenge is that the board saw the hiring packet, but it wasn't included in our packet. So I'm not sure if we can do that because it wasn't even included. And so yeah, David, go ahead.
Yeah, for the assistant special ed director, I can speak with the candidate and assure her of our intentions.
Yeah, I think that we can put it on the agenda for our special meeting next Thursday. So if we can hold on to the candidate, hopefully for a week, that it sounds like that most of the board is understanding that we need to keep kids first, and that the special ed department is already is large and needs 3 people sharing those responsibilities. So I don't think that unless the finance committee has very different suggestions, I expect that position will stay in the budget, and that we will be able to approve it next Thursday. That would be my expectation.
And no way you can approve it with the contingency that once we email you the packet supplement, you have all the information you need?
Well, the board has seen the board has seen the packet, the hiring packet for the candidate, but the question was just about the position. So it wasn't the candidate that anyone had a question about, as far as I know. It was the position that was the question, and so whether we were going to keep the position. But after this discussion tonight, I'm not under the impression, at least I'm not under the impression, that we would want to cut that position.
So should we follow our past practice that if there is a position, as we have with other teaching positions, that if the board had no objections to the candidate over the period of time that we submitted the interview packet and materials, that we would move forward and offer the person a contract as
That it
we
would
have
be
with others?
Yes, and it would be contingent on us finalizing at the board meeting.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so now we'll go to administrators, and I'm going to call on Jen Nye. Would you like to go? Is there anything you'd like to add during roundtable?
Nothing else to add, thank you.
Okay. Erica?
Nothing else to add, thanks.
Okay. Hayden? Nothing. Okay. Chris?
Just a real quick thing. Any folks on social media, Josh Allen has been very helpful in helping me and Hayden. I think we put it in our board report, kind of take creative ways to reach out to the community to share information and celebrate kids, and in terms of very brief videos. And I hope you get a chance to see them. We've had a lot of fun doing them.
Awesome. Oh, Hayden, he's rethinking. Go ahead, Hayden.
Sorry, yes. It didn't get brought up earlier, and I kind of didn't bring it up, but we are working creatively to do our kindergarten graduation this year. It'll probably be at Playground 2000 during their field day, but we'll make it work.
Awesome. Thank you. And last but not least, Brenda.
Yeah, first I want to thank the board for their support of Teacher Appreciation Week last week. That was greatly appreciated by our staff. And we had some other community partners, and our students also do some nice little things for our staff. And so thank you. It was definitely very much appreciated. And I also have another thank you for Jeff Bergeron, the Director of Buildings and Community Service for the City of Barrie. Jeff really helped us out in a bind. We were short on the really large tables. We were doing our SBAC testing in the gymnasium, and the auditorium lent us the tables free of charge. Their folks actually transported them over to us. We used them for 3 weeks, and then they came and got them. So their efforts and everything was just greatly appreciated.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And the only thing I want to mention for other business or roundtable is and Brenda, you can chime in if you'd like, but I know I just want to keep reiterating that right now we have transportation for Spalding High School students. And I think it's my understanding is it's being underutilized. So there's been a big push to get transportation for Spalding students. And if there are students out there who need transportation, is it at the end of the day or is it beginning and end of the day, Brenda?
It is only available at dismissal time. We have modified our routes to try to accommodate some needs. Since we have had a consistent, very few number of students attending, we have decreased the routes and the number of buses. But if anyone is interested in having their children, their students access the transportation, please reach out to me. We definitely have very low ridership, and it is something that I think we definitely need to be offering for our students and families, especially our freshmen and sophomores who do not yet have their driver's license. And I understand all high school students really do want that independence of driving themselves, but some of our families just really have huge challenges with getting the students to campus. And so I do hope that we will be able to continue that offering in the future for both before and after school. And it is something that I will be meeting with Lisa and Stacey Emerson from the transportation company next week or tomorrow, I think, to further discuss the plans for next year. But again, please, the ridership is low and we would love to have more students access it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Brenda. Okay, so next on the agenda is future agenda items, and our next meeting will actually be a week from today, and it sounds like it's going to be a very short agenda. We'll be talking about the FY22 budget. We'll be hopefully finalizing a warning, and we'll also include new hires on there in case things come in addition to the assistant special ed director that we can go ahead and approve. Is there anything else that we need to include on that agenda? Okay, hearing none, we will just leave it at that because since we're meeting next week, we'll talk about future agenda items then. Our next regular board meeting will be May 27th, but our next meeting will be next week on May 20th. So next up is our executive session, and we actually have 2 items for executive session. One, they're both personnel. One is regarding status of employment, and one is regarding superintendent search. The 11.3 we have removed. So because it's personnel, I think we can just do one motion. Is that correct, Andrea? Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're good.
Okay, so we are going to look for a motion to go into executive session, and we're going to invite David into the executive session and Carol. Is that all we need, David? I think that's right. Okay. So David and Carol will be there for 11.1, and then David will leave and Carol will be there for 11.2. Go ahead, Guy.
So moved.
Thank you. I look for a second. Chris is raising her hand, so Chris Parker has the second. Any questions? All right, all those in favor, please signify with a thumbs up. Sarah, Guy, no Guy, Guy, Tim, Gina, Alice, Abby, Chris, and Renee. All right, we are going into executive session. Do we have a link for that?
Yes, the link has already been sent.
Excellent. Okay, so That's all. If you need to take a quick break and get a drink or something, we'll see you in executive session. Thank you, everybody.
Sonia, you expect any action?
No.
No?
No.
All right. I thought I lost you there. There you go. Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
How many applicants did you get? Do you know?
I got a thing, but I don't remember.